What's tea, y'all? I know some of you are out there right now having a hard time, having problems in your relationships, having trouble with life, or maybe you're on social media swiping and swiping, thinking, why can't that be me? Why can't I do that? Well, I'm here to let you know that you can. This is Create Your Own Story with Terrell Garnett, where we not only help you create your own story, but we let you tell yours too. Let's get into it, y'all. What is good, y'all? We are now on season 2. Well, season 2 starts next week. But before we get into season 2, I took a trip with 3 other fellas to Big Bear. And during the podcast that we recorded, we had like an intermission where we were just literally talking about some real stuff. And this is what this is now. So check out the intermission.
You're learning, even though your parents don't say, hey, bro, here's $20, you're watching them go back and forth about how money really is.
To understand the value of
so
the
it's
dollar.
important.
You started.
It's important.
This isn't for the episode.
It's important to understand that. I look at it like when I teach parents about money, that the first 7 years, your kids are picking up on these different things.
He's trying to get us.
You know what I'm saying? You're picking up subconsciously how your parents deal with money. Same thing,
Intermission
relationships.
talk. Exactly.
Right. You sense it. You sense
I
it.
agree.
Your parents aren't telling somebody, hey, well, this is how your money is, or hey, this is how my relationship is. I grew up watching terrible relationships, just terrible, very toxic. So naturally, to me, being
you saw what you don't want.
Right, but the crazy thing is, I seen what I didn't want, but I was still more likely to do it because that was
because you're exposed to it.
Because your relationships like that,
okay.
your relationships like that, your relationships like that. Mine's going to be similar.
What is the comparability of that being the same thing? Yeah,
right. So how does somebody change that? They change that by being around different people that have healthy relationships.
Being exposed to something different.
Being aware.
And being aware, yes, because that's where it ties into. And I'm going back to like all the traumas that I'm been aware of me being a late bloomer.
Yeah.
That
Why do you feel that you're a late bloomer?
I wasn't raised in a specifically normal, quote unquote, normal household, but that's okay because I'm understanding it. But that doesn't excuse what I did in the past or certain things that were done in the past, but it helps me understand it.
So is it hard to change from my perspective, the quote unquote, my world was normal to do this, it was normal to do bad things to make money. It was just normal. That was fine. But when you're growing up and you're a kid, it's just normal. It's just everyday life.
It's normal to you.
I thought everybody lives like this. So what I tell people is, at 23, 24, 30 years old, if I'm teaching you something about money or something, I got to sit there and look at you and basically tell you half the stuff that you grew up with ain't going to work for you. So now you have to go back. How do you go back?
Go back and rewire.
Yeah, unlearn the stuff that you
have to be
learned.
so intentional to change the subconscious because you already have a set way that you've been living.
Operating.
Right. Exactly. So it's very hard to go, well, today I'm not going to drink. I'm out. Tomorrow I'm not going to drink. And then a month later, are you doing it or not? Most people stop before they create that habit. But you're going against 23 years, 25 years, 28 years.
It's crazy because, like, I had to, for me, in my late blooming, I guess, and understanding, I literally I isolated myself.
Why do you say late blooming? I don't.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Late blooming is.
Do you feel like you caught it late?
My own traumas.
Okay.
Like,
so
I had to.
You consciously are aware of whatever. Okay, so I know you said late blooming. So you're consciously aware of you having to realize at whatever time recently
it was
that
weird. Like, I can point out certain things, right? Like, let's say in my surroundings, but it took time for me to point that mirror at myself.
I don't think that's late blooming though, because on some things.
Do you think that's prolonged blooming? Like you just prolonged it, like you, because the thing is, like, for instance, like if I realized some things about myself, and then just recently I came to the conclusion that I was going to change.
When society reacts to, let's say, wrongs that you've done.
I'm gonna take this off. Sorry.
When society reacts to what you've done wrong, but that's when you go inside and you have to go through that yourself.
But what part of it is like? When I think of late blooming, I think of late blooming because you were sheltered and you didn't know certain things, so that's why. But what you're saying, like, you know right from wrong, but you still chose wrong. So I don't understand when you mean by late blooming.
Well, all right, say that first sentence. What you just
I said you know right from wrong. So if you did wrong
before that one.
What did I say?
You threw me off. That was good. No, I was gonna piggyback.
What I was saying is that with late blooming, I think of is that like you were so sheltered. It was so sheltered that you didn't know something.
Well, with me, it's all right. So, like, let's say when you're younger, you think you know, but as through time.
But that's with everybody. So that means that everybody has late blooming.
More time is with more time, more knowledge is being accessible, and you're being more aware.
Is it realization though?
Yeah, the realization.
Do you feel it took you longer to realize it?
It was weird because it's like I'm so great at giving good advice, but when it came to me taking that advice, that was another thing for me.
So I don't think it was late blooming. I think
late realizations.
I feel like because I've learned
or acceptance.
I've learned certain things over and over because I felt that I learned them. And I didn't learn them.
I guess what it was with me is.
But why? Okay, I want to interject on something. Okay,
accepting my traumas.
Why do we say late? You know, I feel like a lot of times we use different words. Like if we look back at vocabulary, negative connotations and stuff like that. But why do you feel that it's late necessarily instead of saying like because the path of progression is different.
I was in denial. There we go. Okay, I'll say. I was in denial.
Okay,
I think all the trauma. Okay, so let's say
it would be late.
Is there such thing as late?
I don't, because with a lot of these things, like you're on your own timeline.
What other people caught on to,
like that.
But like it's okay. I like that. Late compared to what though?
Exactly.
You're saying late compared to somebody else, or
because I'm comparing someone else's experience.
Exactly, but you can't compare it to it. You can't weigh yourself off of somebody else's scale.
I guess what it was, but see, that's how what it was. That was the dynamic of how it was raising in the quote unquote everything has to look good on paper in the household, because you have the eldest that is the golden child.
Yeah, that's like a generational thing, depending on the type of family and your culture and everything like that.
The generational curses, and they put those expectations on towards you, but then at the same time they do not hold those same standards, or you notice more hypocrisy upon that when it goes on to you.
So a lot of your trauma or stuff that you've gone through is more so because you felt like you had to live up to a standard and you weren't living up to it.
I think what it was when it came to me, like.
But we're talking about expectations, right?
Expectations. Okay.
I want to hop in. Okay. I heard something, and in a business stance, they said, never let someone put an expectation on you. And a lot of times when we grow up, and a lot of times in relationships, we let other people put expectations. So in a business stance, if you say,
you ever had those conversations where there's messages being communicated without being communicated, if that makes sense?
Like subliminal messages.
Subliminal.
Of expectation?
Of expectations, guilt, shame.
Yeah.
That's how it was in my household.
And it's projected through insecurity.
At this specific standpoint, or if you weren't here, you ain't shit in my household. And that's how they would make you feel.
It's the level of like the upper
If you weren't a chief, if you weren't a manager, if you didn't graduate college,
it don't mean nothing.
To
it's
them, in their reality. But it took for me to, quote unquote, late bloom for me to understand their reality is their reality. My reality is my reality. For what you're doing and how you raised us is completely different of how I'm raising my daughters. And that's why my daughters are emotionally more more happy.
Intelligent.
You know what I'm saying? Like more connected. Like I feel more connected with my daughters compared to I'm not gonna lie, like growing up in my household, that's not to disregard or push down my parents. It's just they have a different love language. They feel like as if money would represent the quote unquote a family.
What generation were they in? How old are your parents?
1970s, 1980s.
Okay.
So my dad was in the military, and before that, my grandfather was in the Vietnam War.
So they were held with expectations.
Held in the expectations of the family curse, not family curse, but family expectations of joining the military. Pre-colonialized ideas of if you join the military, then that's the only way to success.
Because you're doing something.
Or if you're supposedly going to college.
Because you're working.
Exactly.
That's what. But see, the older generation.
Class working, quote unquote.
Right, we're changing that though. Like I seen that from, I'm the youngest in my family, so I seen that coming from the higher ups of, we're gonna put our expectations on you. And at an early age, I came from like, I'm not gonna work a regular job. You're not gonna put your expectation on me.
You ain't gonna put that on
I'm
me.
gonna make my own
It
expectation.
took me, I guess that's what I'm saying, like the self-esteem within myself to stand up. Yes, I've made music which helped me express the sorrows of not being accepted within a family household of their expectations, or me setting expectations of what I want, and I'm starting to stand up for that. But to stand up for what you were just saying, that took a whole new level of consciousness for me, because I had to lose it all for me to understand that everything that I had was it was a great thing for me to grow, but I needed to lose it all for me to grow.
And
Which
you were
is
going
weird.
the reality is you're going against the grain. Like when we let other people put
I had to
expectations
do
up.
it backwards.
Yeah.
Which is so weird.
But the realization, like when we talk about like the late bloomer and stuff, not to discredit that, but
I guess not late bloomer. But
the realization is you realize there's some people like we hear often like, oh, if I could go back, I would do this. I don't personally like to use that because
And I'm only
at the end of the
27,
day,
like,
yeah, like at the end of the
30's
day,
the new
realization's
20,
realization. There's no time limit. I realized. Realized and realization. You
but
either
better,
done- you
quote
either
unquote,
realize
better
it or
late
you
than
haven't.
never. Right?
Yeah. But it's not really late. See, because the point of life, in my opinion, in the progression we're going through,
That's
is
supposedly time is irrelevant.
it's a marathon.
It's a marathon,
If
and
you've
time
actually-
is irrelevant because it's the awareness of where you're at. Because let's say you could be, remember how we were talking earlier about you could be fixated on the present right now, but at the same time you're fixated on the future because you're focused on what do I got to do to get things done to preserve the future that I do want to have.
The influence,
But you don't let it drive
the
you.
influence that we let
Overdrive.
other people, especially our parents, and I talk a lot about this in finances. Like y'all can't let y'all parents tell y'all nothing. Like at
I
one
had to
age,
just learn
at
that
one
shit.
age, right? At one age, you're an adult.
Because they're,
But even before that, we have expectations of school.
but
we
you're not
have
growing up.
expectations
They're
of
like
people.
superheroes. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
but we want them to. You want people to go ahead and give you a round of applause because you did something. But they're living in their perspective, and they're saying at the end of the day, what you did isn't what I did. You barely moved the ball. Why you want me to give you a
And
hand
that's the
clap
same
or a
thing.
second place
And
trophy?
Yep.
But they're coming from a
times were
different
different.
standpoint. Yeah,
Times were different at that specific step.
you had to work back in the. Listen,
You had to work your ass off.
Yeah.
You had to
Yeah.
walk. You had to to go to school. You had to walk 5 miles.
Oh, yeah, I hear that
You
one
had to
time,
get
like-
water. This and that. Like
you guys take the bus now. I used to walk. Well, good. I'm glad I take the bus because you had to walk.
Thank
Now
you
they made
for
a bus for me to take the bus.
Yeah.
The point is for it to get easier, right, by
For the next
generations
generation.
instead of holding each other
accountable for those
to the
burdens
next level.
of, hey, I just had a child. That's a burden. No, it's, hey, I had a child. I'm gonna make it easier, and we're gonna preserve the next thing and
Not
push
that.
on.
But a lot of it comes from resentment from the fact that their generation had it harder. Instead of saying we build the path for you to have it easier. And that's what I have a problem with specifically growing up. It's like you're supposed to make it easier. Once I get to a certain age, I should have the different things that you didn't have.
Both of my parents, they didn't have their mothers growing up. So when it came to the emotional aspect of approaching emotions or communicating anything like I love you or like that, far out the equation. They would literally be like, this is my happy birthday. Boom.
I definitely think growing up with expectations though, at a certain level,
And you don't want to expect that. You don't want to expect a gift like that when you realize like that's just a price. Does the price value the emotional aspect of, hey, I raised you? You know what I'm saying?
but some people don't have emotional intelligence.
The emotional
That's the reality.
intelligence, emotional
That's what
maturity,
there's an
empathy.
actual thing called emotional intelligence.
Talk
Yeah,
that
most
shit.
people
Talk that
don't have
shit.
it.
They don't have it.
EQ is a big thing in this today's time. People talk about a lot of people talk about IQ, but EQ is just as important because if you're not emotionally healthy or you don't have the wherewithal emotionally to understand yourself or just even the setting that you're in or what you're feeling, then
Everything can get misconstrued
well, you can get misconstrued.
in your own sauce. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so EQ is a huge thing because if you don't understand yourself, one, you're gonna have a hard time understanding others, but you're gonna also have a hard time understanding yourself in the sense of being able to grow and
Your own
move
reality.
forward.
your own reality. Everything's all misconstrued.
That links to direct life.
Yeah, you can't. If you don't understand, like what Jerry was saying, it's just like when people do something to you or say something to you, you're not gonna act rationally.
You're actually gonna. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
you're actually gonna respond in a manner that's not that's not in the best way because it's gonna end up happening instead of. So I'll give you an example. Someone gets mad at you for something that you said, not realizing what you said was actually from a good place. Emotionally healthy people will understand maybe they're going through something. Maybe they've been through this. Maybe they've been through some hard times. And so now I have this understanding where they probably have some trauma that they're suffering with.
Compared to as being triggered and getting angry and not wanting to either listen to the point.
Exactly. But even beyond that, it's even more so. You're not just getting mad at them, but now you're also not understanding the fact that you're not understanding the place that they're at, and you're not understanding the place that you're at. So what ends up happening is you just go out on a limb and start judging them for where they're, from where they're coming from, not realizing that they've been through these past traumas, or perhaps they happen to have been through these past traumas.
Exactly. And that's not analyzing real.
That's not really analyzing anything at all.
There's no empathy behind it.
There's no empathy.
Empathy is a big thing. I tell people, like, I don't want to give somebody sympathy, right? Because I look at sympathy as sorrow, and when you look at it in the Bible, sorrow is not a good thing.
Not to feel sorry for someone going through that.
Why do I gotta feel sorry for you? But I can have understanding for your situation.
Understanding, putting yourself in the shoes.
And then that's when if you understand, then you make a solution. If I feel sorry for you, I may not even help you. Think about it. People drive past people every single day that needs money, and they say, "Oh, I feel so sorry."
People quote unquote that are at the gas station and they ask for money.
Yeah, I feel sorry for this person. They don't reach in their pocket, but I had empathy because I seen people I know go out there and do that. So I'm not gonna be sorry. I'm gonna say, "Here's $1. God bless you."
People that been out there in that position and made something from themselves.
Exactly.
From that.
So that's understanding, but the emotional intelligence, that's huge in the long run. That's how people are successful. To be a successful business owner, I think you have to have emotional intelligence at the highest level.
I feel like us as a human race, we're raising the vibration of emotional intelligence. We're slowly starting to get aware of it. Just starting from psychology.
In society?
Hopefully.
Just to piggyback off of sympathy and empathy, I think a lot of people get confused. Sympathy is when you've actually been through the exact same thing that somebody else has. Okay. So then you can share that same type of sympathy. It's not empathy anymore because you've gone through that.
Yeah.
Empathy is where you haven't gone through it, but you can kind of understand what they're going through.
You're trying to put yourself in their shoes.
Exactly. It's just the two difference.
Okay.
It's trying to feel what the other individual is going through. The other one's...
But at least trying to.
But we never will, realistically, because the perspective is always going to be different. If something happens right now, we'll all have a different perspective of the whole situation. So that's a lot of life is like, you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be that dogmatism? Because why does it got to be that dogmatic approach? Like the ultimatum approach.
Well, that's what society says.
Yeah.
And the
in
structures
movies from parents, if your parents say something, they say you're wrong. You did bad.
You got to do this or you got to do that.
You did bad, right?
Right. Exactly.
But bad means indifferent.
And being indifferent is bad.
Right. Because it's not normal. But when you just talked right now, my lifestyle was normal to me. Let's say but yours was different.
If we were indifferent to each other, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I had a friend that I had to tell that too. I was like, yeah, you're going through what you're going through, and somebody may have gone through the exact same thing that you've gone through. However, they didn't grow up the same way that you did. So the way that you feel, nobody else feels how you feel because only you can feel that way.
It's a million variables.
Yeah.
That's why perspective and us understanding ourselves first
is
the biggest thing.
We get it deep.
Yeah, this is just a bonus, y'all.
If you simplified it, if we simplified it, it comes down to that because we all live in the world of a manifestation of what we have our thoughts. We're internalizing our environment and our look every single day. That's why if you change your look right now, I guarantee you'll have a different interaction in your day-to-day life. And I've seen this happen. So it starts with us and what we think and what we internalize. And that's what we start to get. When you are negative, that's the energy you're going to start receiving. If you're positive, you'll start receiving that energy. And I used to be someone that was skeptical and negative. And I stood around people I was around.
It's so easy because you can attract those same situations because your mind is so fixated on whatever is negative.
Sometimes
how you were raised.
Sometimes I don't even think it's you attracting it. I think it's just where your focus is at.
Yeah, so
You think you're attracting it. You think you're attracting it, but the
But
reality is, if you were to change your
mind-
perspective, you would actually see the same place that you think you're attracting, in the same sphere that you think you're attracting the negative things. There's actually the positive things. So the positive things could be in the same proximity of the negative things. It's just that your
It's
focus
what
is on the negative
the
things.
focus, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I-
completely what I was.
it's a
saying.
perspective.
Yeah, I used to
of-
work at this job, Perry Ellis, and I
Shout out
fucking
Perry Ellis.
I fucking hated the manager.
I shot
What's
there.
that?
It's a men's clothing store.
Okay.
When you have swag like us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mala. Okay, I see it. All right. Okay, talk that shit. Talk that shit.
I hated the manager, and like I dreaded going to work. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have a positive attitude, and I'm going to, think positively about this. Like, he's not that bad. And swear after that day, like I was like, oh, like to this day, he's the only person I talked to from that store.
Okay.
And that was over like
Shout
10 years ago. So like it was just because, like Jerry was saying, my mindset was focused on the negative and not all the positive. And once I
Sometimes the
switched my,
circumstances can create these influences,
and I
of
feel like
thoughts
it
that
wasn't
are
even that.
not disillusions.
I was creating them.
Same.
Like
Because
it
the
wasn't the
perspective.
circumstances.
Because-
Nothing changed. Just me. I decided to look at things differently.
Because
Everything else was the same.
in the whole situation. I like that. So since I get cars and I rent them out, right? Every time I get a new car, there's cars that I've never driven before. I'll go get them, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as I get the car, I'll see 20, 30 of them because my mind. I just got a
Yeah.
Mustang 5.0. So now every
That
time I see a
focus,
car, I'm
like
going to
Jerry
see a
was
Mustang.
saying, that
Yeah.
focus.
There's negatives and positives in this whole. That's why when we talk about progression, like it's not a linear thing where it's just like, progression's positive and I progressed today. Progression's hard.
It's gonna be up and down. You're
Yeah.
gonna feel good. You're gonna feel bad.
The point of progression is pushing yourself to the limits. You're gonna get whooped. But to keep going is understanding that there's that silver lining of that's positive or I could look negative. And that's why they say maybe you can't change the situation, then change your perspective on it.
Because I had to take an even break. Like, let's say I was making content, right? Yes, I can make it. I can make content, and I can be as committed to the schedules as that I want. But if I want to raise the standard, I'm definitely going to take a break and reevaluate what I can do better. So let's say, I was just making freestyle videos, right? Okay, what's the next best thing to level it up? Okay, I want to do music videos. Okay, what's the next best thing after that? You want to consistently shoot better music videos. 1, with better locations. 2, with actually adding cutscenes. 3, let's say we want to add a choreography, fight scenes. Or 4, we want to add
Have you started any of that?
Yes, I actually have other choreographer fighters, mixed martial artists. I want to do behind the scenes, some my daughter gets kidnapped. I'm going into fucking fuck shit up. Some Ip Man shit. Ip Man meaning
no, I'm losing the
going
point of what
into
you
a
were
dojo.
saying. I thought you were gonna lead to something. I'm missing the point.
All right, previous point. What was I going into?
You forgot it too. I was like, "Where's
We were
this coming
talking
to?
about progression.
Yeah. Y'all ready for the podcast?
Are we on a podcast?
This is the bonus. This ain't,
basically,
we
We haven't
still gotta-
started the episode.
Yeah, we haven't started the episode. I just recorded
All
this. 'cause
content.
it was
Honestly,
tight.
no, I like
Yeah.
this.
Make content. Start making content.
Exactly.
Push it out.
But when I guess what it was, I had to take a break because it's I was making music videos, but you can only make so many music videos. You can shoot so many shots of let's see, you walking down the street and wording the lyrics. But how do you want to take it to the next level with and compete with, let's say, all the other artists?
That's the problem, though. You can't. Don't compete with
I'm not
nobody else.
competing. Well,
But you said you were.
Okay, I like how you stated that. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is pushing yourself individually at a higher standard.
No, seriously. I remember I was at my friend's house and this person that will be not named was there or whatever. And I don't know why he had an issue with me for no apparent reason. I'm an easy going person.
From your perspective.
From my perspective, I am though.
Hello, chill.
But he was like, well, I can see that you're just trying to compete with me. And I'm like, compete with you? I don't even know who the hell you are,
That's
what you're
corny
doing
as
too.
fuck.
But Like, the only person I'm trying to compete with is myself every day, and I struggle with that.
Fuck out of here with that bullshit, bro.
But I say all that to say, like, yeah, all you focus on yourself and compete with yourself to be better, the better you, because
the best thing to do. Because
when doing music, you're gonna have fans that like you just for you, and then you're gonna have fans that just don't like you just because, you know.
And the thing
the
with
wind blew
me,
a different way.
When I was telling you I wanted to take a break because I wasn't liking the position that I was gonna put myself in.
Do you overthink when you create?
Yeah, and
I think
as
that's
a
a big
creative,
problem.
and it's a good and a bad, the balance, because you can at least check yourself and be like, okay, I know my insecurities, but you can't let those insecurities overrun you. Those may be like some boundaries or layers where it's like, all right, check yourself.
I think that's the biggest
or
mistake.
work on yourself, but those aren't those things that are like other voices that dictate the individual inside.
It's
of what
whisper.
you're
It's
doing.
taking out the chatter, right?
Yeah.
So people hit me up all the time, like, "Oh wow, you're doing great." Meanwhile, 3 weeks ago they told me my business would never make it. But you know how I navigate making content is I'm gonna make content I want to make. The market's gonna dictate if they like the content or not. They're gonna say
Exactly.
we like these videos,
Like,
or they
you
maybe they
can-
like photos.
You
But-
cannot post something right now, and let's say you get picked up on a magazine interview. Boom.
So
People
people
ain't
need to
gonna
make
say
more
shit.
content.
Like,
The
it
longer
ain't
people
shit.
take to think
What?
about what they're making because of compliments or negative factors is the problem. We love
What are you looking
compliments,
for?
right? We'll take compliments, but we don't want to take something negative, right? We hear
Constructive criticism.
But there's a difference between constructive criticism from a professional and constructive criticism,
Criticism.
right? From somebody that's not even watching your stuff. Somebody watching your stuff and saying, "Bro, that shit sucked."
But it's so quick
It's
for
different.
an individual to say something where they're not even easily invested.
But if they
That's
saying
the
it sucks, at
bullshit
least they
about it.
watched it.
But that's why
I weren't even given that attention.
That's
in the
why,
first place.
right? Not listening to compliments
Yeah.
or the negative factors when making so much content is one of the key things I focus on, because I appreciate the compliments, but if I get happy for every time someone makes me a compliment, on the flip side,
Sometimes
I'm
they can
gonna
be
feel
very deceptive.
I'm
You
gonna
know-
feel, if I get happy every time someone gives me a compliment, right, quote unquote,
Well,
or
how you
feel
gonna
something,
feel when something
says somebody
bad?
says negative. So how about I don't
gotta
look at any of that?
Detach from.
You know what?
Detach from making
You
the
gotta
content.
detach.
You know what I
Content,
find
push
too?
it out.
Push
Like-
out the content, detach from the results. Just keep on pushing.
It's just
you,
not
you take the
overthinking
results.
creativity.
Well, I think there's
Right.
there's a healthy balance between the two, because you could become drunk off of people's praises.
Praises
and
and
then-
you're drunk off your own desires too.
Well, you can get drunk off of people's praise. Let's just say you follow your desires and you create, for instance, like the content that you want to create. You can get drunk off people's praises. People can clap for you all the time. There's a healthy balance between. There's a difference between a critic and a hater. Sometimes critics prove some things to be true, and so if we dismiss all those things, I'm not saying that you take those things deeply to heart, but if you dismiss them,
Then you're not.
then you're not
progressing, trying to progress.
You're not. You could be missing maybe some truth that they're pointing out.
Information.
But I think that's also that's not for the faint of heart either. So you have to take it for the good and the bad. And I think if you get drunk off people's praises, you're going to be lost in, for instance, your own sauce. You know what I mean? And then if you,
Exactly.
I'm not trying to sound really cliche.
Lost in ego. Lost
Yeah, but
in ego.
it's an ego thing. So I think you have to sort of have this level of discernment to know when things are simply not true that people are saying about you, then when there's a critic that's actually pointing out something that could be actually valid. Because sometimes it's like what we were talking about when we were walking back. There's his truth, her truth, and the truth. And sometimes their truth has partial truth in it. And so you have to evaluate those things. But
And
the thing
there's
is,
being
is
surrounded
when-
around yes men as well.
when you're creating content or you're pioneering something or you're creating something that's fresh, you have to be open to those things. And again, you have to also understand how to differentiate between the two. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Now, that's funny as you say that, because I remember the shirts that I had that made or whatever, the logo and whatnot. So I sent you-
The ones that you made, but the other girl didn't print them out for the longest.
we're not talking about that. I still
Your
haven't got those
coworker?
shirts. We're not talking about that, but I
for the
still ain't got them
archives.
shirts.
That's
No,
for
just
the
the
archives.
ones, the tank tops that I made just for
Okay, yeah.
promotion, whatnot. And I remember I sent one to my cousin, and she's like, "Oh, I think it's too busy. You need to simplify it." And I'm like, "Well, what would you do to simplify it?" And she's all like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly, because there's nothing to simplify, because it's literally the name of the podcast, my picture, and it says, the.
Did you feel like you wanted to add more?
No, I didn't even ask for her fucking opinion. But that's my point, though.
Okay.
Like, sometimes you don't even ask for people's opinion, but everybody has one and they want to give it. They feel the right to.
Well, you opened it up by saying
That's your
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah, so
once you put your expression
So
out,
I'm just like, but you still got to
It's
be
art.
open to be like,
It's
okay,
art.
well, what do you? Okay, I listened. I see what you're saying, but what should I
Art
do?
is
the market
subjective, bro.
dictates it though. Realistically,
The market
when
will
I make
subject it.
content, I look at analytics and I listen to certain things. You can see things without someone saying it.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody on my video like, "Hey, bro." Actually, I did. One of my most successful videos that actually gave game. They're like, "Bro, you suck. Like that's stupid. That don't make no sense." And I'm laughing because I'm making money. Like just follow the blueprint, right? And that's fine. I still kept posting videos, but I'm not gonna listen to someone that's not educated in the
Not in
field.
the
They're
same
watching
lane.
my videos to get educated. So
Yeah.
it's difference between like a critic and a hater. And then some people just don't know better. They just want to sit there and have their opinion.
They have the opinion, but they don't have the full knowledge.
That's
behind
like,
it. Everyone has their own like facets.
But
of
I choose.
information.
Listen, like if you're not
In their pockets,
if you're
I
not
see.
if you're not somebody that has something that I'm looking for. If you're creating content and you're doing something that I look at, I'm gonna look for corrective criticism from somebody as in a mentorship or something, as well
Who
as
has
people
furthered in the game of whatever
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going
As
towards.
well as
that
fans and
prospect.
stuff. However, there's certain people that I'm gonna to look at the corrective criticism because your opinion doesn't mean it's corrective criticism.
If
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
going anywhere.
I think another thing too. I think that's one of the good things. Whether it's like, you and your business having a team, or actually you having a team as far as your circle, your personal circle. That's why it's important to have a team. Whether it's again your life circle or your circle when it comes to like whatever your corporation or leadership you're running or whatever. That's going to be able to point those things out, because if you don't have those things, again, you could fall also into the predicament where you're just trying to please everybody.
Yep.
And again, that's also going back to the tension of
Where's the progress being made?
that's going back to the tension of being able to use discernment between the hater and the critic and whatnot. But I will say this: it's better to have people on your team. And when I say this, on your team, it could apply to life. It's not just in your business. It could be in your circle,
Just tell you
pointing
real
out
shit.
pointing out the blind spots that are going to point out those things to help you grow. If not, I mean, again, you could just be running and
You're
not
not
have
surrounding
anybody.
yourself around people that want to, push towards, growth, not towards, let's say, their perception of your growth. But let's say you want someone to do better for you, and let's say, hey, I'm gonna check you. I'm like, hey, bro, that shit wasn't right. I'm definitely gonna check you. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Because I care for you. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, this is getting long, so I'm going to end
Yeah,
this now. We're
let's
going to start
Let's start the
actual
podcast.
podcast.
Let's start the podcast.
Let's go.
Let's do
Late.
this.
And that's all we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed yourself on this episode of Create Your Own Story with Terrell Garnett. We'll catch you next time.